Picture this. It's March 2026, and the entire global economy is just teetering on the edge of a massive energy shock. We're going to break down how a single military flashpoint spiraled into this full-blown crisis, and we'll trace the shockwaves from the war room to the global markets and all the way down to your wallet. You know, for millions of people, the first sign that something was seriously wrong wasn't on the news, it was right here. Prices at the pump didn't just inch up, they absolutely skyrocketed almost overnight. But the real story here, it's so much bigger than what you're paying to fill up your car. All that chaos you're seeing at the pump, all the panic in the markets, believe it or not, it all traces back to one of the most critical and fragile choke points on the entire planet. So, to really understand how we got here, we have to rewind back to February 28, 2026. This is the day that a long-simmering conflict in the Persian Gulf finally boiled over, triggering a massive military response. The White House announced what it called Operation Epic Fury. It was a decisive military action with three very clear goals: to destroy Iran's ballistic missile capabilities, to completely neutralize its navy, and to make sure its nuclear program was dismantled for good. And with that single operation, the door was effectively slammed shut on one of the world's most vital waterways. To really get the scale of the fallout, you have to understand what was at stake before all this happened. The entire global energy system, and I mean all of it, was balanced on the knife's edge of this one narrow channel of water. We are, of course, talking about the Strait of Hormuz. It's this 21-mile-wide passage that connects the oil and gas-rich Persian Gulf to the open ocean. For decades, it's been called the world's single most critical energy artery. And the amount of energy that passed through here is just staggering. Before this crisis, 20 million barrels of oil flowed through this strait every single day. That's a fifth of all the oil the world consumes, plus about 20% of the world's liquid natural gas. And before the conflict, this place was run like a meticulously managed highway at sea. I mean, you had 2-mile-wide lanes for ships coming in and out, a buffer zone in between. International law guaranteed transit passage so ships could just move freely. It was predictable, it was efficient, and it was the bedrock of the entire global energy supply chain. So what happens when that highway suddenly slams shut? Well, the first shockwave wasn't actually a shortage of oil, it was a crisis of confidence, and that sent financial and shipping markets into a complete and utter meltdown. I mean, just look at this jump. In February 2026, Brent crude oil was sitting around $73 a barrel, pretty stable. After the conflict kicked off, it soared, peaking near $120. The market wasn't just reacting to a possible shortage, it was pricing in pure, unadulterated chaos. And here's the real kicker. It became almost impossible to even get a ship into the region. Insurance companies basically declared the entire Persian Gulf a war risk area, and the premiums just to insure a tanker and its cargo, they shot up by over 400%. The risk of getting hit by a drone just became financially unbearable. This, as you can imagine, led to a logistical nightmare, with the area being pretty much uninsurable. A lot of the tankers that dared to go in started going dark. They literally turned off their tracking transponders to become invisible. The whole system of orderly, predictable shipping just completely fell apart. But this shockwave, this crisis, it didn't hit everyone the same way. The exact same event created a world of difference, exposing these deep, deep vulnerabilities for some countries, while others were, well, far more insulated. Just take the US and India, for example. For the United States, a major energy producer itself, the impact on natural gas prices was there, but it was kind of muted. But for India, a massive energy importer, this crisis was an immediate, existential threat to its economy and to its people. So, from the American perspective, the strategic objectives were everything. The focus, as the White House put it, was all about eliminating military threats and securing long-term goals in the region. Meanwhile, in stark contrast, India's government was in full-blown crisis management mode. Their focus wasn't on geopolitics, but on sheer survival, trying to secure fuel, protect households, and just keep the country from grinding to a halt. And that's where this huge global story comes from the war room right into the home. For hundreds of millions of people, this energy crisis became deeply personal. It hit them on what you could call the kitchen frontline. This chart right here tells you everything you need to know about India's vulnerability. India imports about 60% of its liquefied petroleum gas, or LPG. That's the main cooking fuel for most households. And get this, a staggering 90% of those imports came directly through the Strait of Hormuz. So, when the strait closed, India's kitchens were directly on the front line. And boom, suddenly the price of a standard cooking gas cylinder in Delhi jumped to 913 rupees. This wasn't some distant economic number on a spreadsheet. This was a direct hit to the monthly budget of millions and millions of families. And that's really the key takeaway here. For so much of the world, this energy crisis isn't about the inconvenience of paying more for gasoline. It's about the fundamental ability to cook a meal for your family. The geopolitical became the domestic, just like that. So where does the world even go from here? As this crisis continues to unfold, energy analysts are starting to see three potential paths forward, and each one has dramatically different consequences for all of us. Okay, so analysts see three main ways this could all play out. First, a quick resolution. Diplomacy works, the strait reopens, and markets calm down. Second, and this is the more dangerous one, is a prolonged stalemate. That would mean countries tapping into their emergency reserves, persistently high prices, and probably a global recession. And then there is the third scenario, a fundamental realignment. In this future, the world doesn't go back to normal. It builds a new one, creating entirely new energy alliances and trade routes to bypass the Persian Gulf for good. You know, this whole crisis has forced a really hard question on the entire world. From the gas pump in California to the kitchen stove in Delhi, the shutdown of one 21-mile strait has revealed just how connected and, frankly, how fragile our global system really is. It leaves us with one final thought. When the world's energy artery clots, who ultimately pays the price?